supplies. On the web at betsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
Hi, it's Bob Plass, and I have Wow, It's Tuesday, every Tuesday, 6 to 8. Wow, it's Tuesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
I did it!
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
You know I'm a dreamer, but my heart's of gold. I had to run away high, so I wouldn't come home low. Just when things went right, it doesn't mean they were always wrong. Just take this song, and you'll never be left all alone. Take me to your heart, fill me in your bones. Just one more night, and I'm coming on this long and winding road. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. Home, sweet home. Tonight, I'm on my way. I'm on my way. Home, sweet home. You know that I've seen too many romantic dreams up in lights falling off the silver screen. My heart's like an open book for the whole world to read. Sometimes nothing keeps me together at the seams. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. Home, sweet home. Tonight, I'm on my way. Just set me free. Home, sweet home. Home, sweet home. Home, sweet home. Home, sweet home.
But it's all right, I'll still go. We good, Pete?
Yeah, the music faded out. You're
Okay,
up.
all right. I wasn't
If
sure.
you can see yourself on the screen, then
All
you're
right,
up.
That works for me.
Just talk right into the microphone right
All
there.
right. Good morning. Good morning.
No, talk directly into the microphone.
This one?
Yeah, that one right there.
Hey, I'm not as skilled at this as other people.
Okay.
So, good morning, Peter. How are you?
I'm doing fine.
It's been a while since I saw you.
Yeah, schedules got crazy, things
Oh,
like that, yeah.
Schedules got crazy. Went to Vegas, got sick, which is pretty much the standard for me. But
Nice wintertime routine. Yeah. Well, it's trapped in a plane with everybody doesn't help either.
That'll
so.
do it.
So here's my second go around with Around Southwick. I actually had a third guest. I'm hoping he makes it, but I brought in today our town planner, John Goddard, and I also brought in James Jaron from Holyoke Cannabis, Zap Electric. As everybody knows, I've been pushing pretty, well, I wouldn't say pretty hard, but I'm pretty consistently on bringing in a dispensary into town with the tax money it can bring in. So James is well-versed because he owns how many stores?
I own Holyoke Cannabis, and I own a grow facility in Orange, Massachusetts
All right.
as well.
So, so James has a good handle on everything. So, last meeting I presented it. I presented it as a warrant article, and it's getting put together properly. The town council's going to look at it and make sure it's worded right, so I didn't screw anything up. So we don't want to do anything where it sounds illegal. So.
No.
But so that's where we're at with that. The one change that I'm looking to make, I want to do this in basically small pieces. I'm not trying to force this down everybody's throat. I'm just trying to take advantage of the revenue that's there. Like I made some examples with Great Barrington, similar, a little bit smaller than us, but I think they've got more of like a downtown than we do.
They do.
But their first year, which was like a partial year, they brought in $200-something thousand in taxes. And then from there, it's just increased. It went from then to 1.4. And as of the last stat I had out of one of their reports from their town manager, it was 1.75.
And Jason, just to be clear, the change you mentioned for the warrant article, that's the opportunity to open up for retail
Yep.
sales?
What it's going to do is we have it's actually going to be a two-step process for us. We've got the general bylaw, which states that, I can't remember the specific wording, but it goes from 63.1 is the bylaw in the section, and it basically just states at one point, it just says recreational marijuana cannabis facilities shall not be allowed. I'm just looking to change that one word. For now, it will not allow a dispensary. That's a zoning bylaw, and that takes a 2/3 vote. This one will just take a simple majority, but it gives us some wiggle room. I mean, we can really start talking about this and deciding where we're going to put it. That's kind of why I brought John in. I wanted to talk about some of the exciting things that are going on in town, and he could explain the overlay district that we have, since I'm not exactly sure how that works. Unfortunately, like I said, my other guest, Frank Grillo, is not here yet. I'm hoping he shows up. But I had brought him in as he is the new owner of the launch in the marina. And I was excited to bring him in so he could talk about his plans. He also bought the old VFW. He's already worked on the downstairs bar. I've never really been in that place except for the upstairs. He's barely got the downstairs. Have you been over there at all?
Haven't had the pleasure, no.
So he's got that going on. He's already had some interest in somebody possibly bringing a brewery there, which I think that would be a kind of cool thing.
Absolutely.
He's got that area. He does the car shows. He's got the pavilion. And he's got access. So that's good there. And like I said, he's purchased the launch in the marina. And he's working on doing some upgrades there. I know some people are very sensitive about the animals, but we had to have some beavers removed because the two huts that they had were, about the size of Town Hall. You could see them from the satellite on Google Maps. So
They are industrious animals.
Yes, I've been told from some people. I think it might have even been Frank, because he owns several properties actually in the area, East Granby, and he's a Suffield sign, or I think it might be just sign ordinance. I'm not exactly sure how they work, but he does a lot of stuff, and he's now a Southwick resident. He's been there for 4 or 5 years. He lives on the lake, just like Mr. Jaron does.
Right. I was going to say that's important to state that I just don't own Holyoke Cannabis, but I'm also
Correct.
a resident of Southwick.
That's, and we're not here promoting James to say
No.
he wants to bring a dispensary, and we're not favoritism or anything like that, but like I said, it makes it sound a little bit cheap, but it's free money. It's money that comes from tax revenue that the town doesn't have to do anything except allow that establishment in. And it's to me, it's a no-brainer. The money's there with the delivery services. James, correct me if I'm wrong. Are they allowed to deliver in our town? I know that of course, there's no way we can really check it.
Right, right. I'm not really sure about the answer. Some towns, it depends on the ordinance and how it's written. If you're allowed to deliver to a town, that's against it. But I'm not really sure, so I don't want to just state something that's not accurate. But I think also to your point, Jason, it's having a dispensary in our town or not in our town. It doesn't mean that the same money in the consumption is not there. It just means that our residents now need to travel to Westfield or to any other place and basically bring the cannabis back into town to consume it. So what we've achieved here is making it inconvenient for our residents. Second of all, we've basically let the revenue just drive across our town border.
One of my biggest arguments.
And now as Connecticut, it's going to go the other direction. So everybody's driving through our town. And also it's an inconvenience. You have to realize there's a lot of people, especially the geriatric community, where they use it for their arthritis. There's a lot of people that suffer from lack of sleep. So it's not, for me, it's not just, and I think, last month I came to the committee out of my own time, unannounced, and basically stated that I gave the city of Holyoke over $2 million in sales tax, use tax. And I'm like, this is crazy that I live in a town where somebody like myself is giving $2 million in taxation to the city of Holyoke. So I think there's a lot of benefits. I also think in today's market, the people that were concerned about, children and druggies and traffic jams, I think at this point we all recognize that.
I actually got, for a little noise, I actually got a little heat at work because of my comments back in September about that, like you said, the druggies. I managed to say, and my wife said, please don't say it again, but I mentioned the gang element that some people think of, and the Cheech and Chong element. People, the folks that are dead set against it, I'm not here to change their mind. I want them to open their eyes and just say, hey, look, I have so many of them. Some of the people that I know are dead set against it are also the same ones that are on the forums, because I pay attention, and sometimes I even post because I want people to know what's going on. I know of at least one person who specifically talks about the taxes are too high and we need to lower the taxes, and that individual I know is against the cannabis, and I'm giving you the option. I'm giving you, not me personally, but I'm opening up the option for that tax revenue. Like I said at the select board meeting on Monday, I looked at some of the things. We started our our budgets last Saturday, and which is my first endeavor into that. I will admit I was ready to fall asleep by the end of it.
Don't we need a fire truck, an ambulance?
Well,
we're struggling over pennies, $100,000
well, the
in the
ambulance,
cannabis
when we
world
had
is-
the accident, we didn't have enough insurance to fund it. So we got our insurance, but we still had to pay more out. What a lot of people, the costs went up. It's interesting. Mr. Moglen, and I agree, and my wife is the same way. She works, has a lot of contracts. She works for the state, and she says, well, if we set a contract, it's not going to change. But not to go way off the rails, as I like to let everybody know, I do have ADHD, so I can sometimes take a 90-degree
Well, Jason, you're
turn.
absolutely right. I mean, as an electrician, I'm doing a job in Greenfield. I'm doing their library, and I'm doing in Orange, Massachusetts, an elementary school, and these are multi-million-dollar contracts, and we could not charge $1 extra for the increase in material. So I was kind of caught a little bit surprised myself when I was at your meeting. So you are correct. A contract's a contract, and there is no provision for price increases. You give me a price, you gave me a price, especially with government work.
Well, and usually what happens is, unfortunately, if the cost of materials go up, it's the next guy that it's like inflation. It continues to go up, and that was kind of a big bummer when they told us that we're a significant delay because of the manufacturing materials that we're in shortage everywhere. They're slowly starting to come back, and then you're told it's going to go up, and you only allotted this in your budget. So this is the type of thing where, we're not Great Barrington. We may not bring in 1.7. We may not bring in 1. Westfield brought in, I did a check on their line item budget, 1,062,000. My numbers could be slightly off.
But even if it's 250,000, a fire truck, an ambulance.
The fire truck that was forecasted, and of course we know in 5 years, that was it. I think it was the $725,000 fire truck. In 3 years, that's going to be $1 million or whatever, 3 to 5. So the one of my goals when I got on the select board is to listen to everybody, hear what they're saying, and try and implement what the folks want. And if they tell me they don't want something, that they don't want something. It will. If it's probably going to end up on the town warrant as that article, and the town, because we have, as Russ likes to always say, the purest form of government, the people get the vote at the town meeting. The people will speak. If they still don't want it, they still don't want it. I just really want them to think about what they might be turning down here.
If I can ask you, Jason, what are the major concerns you're hearing? I mean, because I would like to really, I think I have an answer for the majority. I mean, one of the arguments I always hear that you're going to encourage a black market. I can tell you, owning Holyoke Cannabis right now, we sell an ounce of cannabis flower at this point for less than what you can buy it on the street. And we also make sure, it's tested, so there's no fentanyl. We're not killing anybody.
Yeah,
so, I mean, there's not an argument that somebody can sit in front of me and tell me, but I would love to have these, maybe we can have another meeting with somebody that opposes, and we can go over line item, and I'd be happy to answer it. And again, you said, yes, maybe I'm interested in putting a cannabis store in Southwick because it's where I live, but I don't have any plans right now. I haven't submitted anything, and 2 months ago when I came in, I purely came in from a point of view of what can we do for the town.
Exactly.
As a resident, I live on Lake Congamon, so I'm purely really, and I can, if it becomes such a conflict, I'll be happy to throw my hat out of the race for the store. That's how much I feel passionate about it. Just so you know my background, I've really never consumed a lot of marijuana as a kid. I've never really been somebody that was one of these, cannabis guys. I went into it as a business. So purely I can speak from that point of view, but the regulations are so strict on how we market, how we advertise, how we child-proof stuff. We're not even, they use the term gummy bear. You're not allowed to even have a gummy in the shape of a bear because that will attract the kids. So there is no such thing as a gummy bear. I mean, really, they've done such a great job in securing everything that today, now years later, I really believe that, besides having the stigma in our head from the Reagan days of your brain on drugs and whatnot, that and again, I mean, the bottom line is not having this store is not going to stop the residents of our town consuming. It's just where they're getting it from.
Well, the prime example is people can still grow at home.
Absolutely.
And they can't sell it, but they can give
Right.
it. So it's
and now the neighborhoods are going to smell like weed because everybody's growing 3 plants in a
guys are
family,
like
6 or 9 plants.
As we know, here in town, we've got 2. I think the third one was just approved. And in my professional capacity, they outright said, come check out our facilities, see how they are. One of the other things I said in that select board meeting back in September was that they're, in some cases, I can tell you right now, they're cleaner than the Noble ER room.
Absolutely.
You can't get in there without showing an ID. You can't. Usually, don't you have to show something to get out as well?
Well, you have to be over 21 for sure. But let me tell you, Jason, I also own a grow facility, and yes, you have to wear a Tyvek suit. The problem is with grow facility, where's the revenue? Because as a grow facility, when I sell a dispensary the cannabis, they don't pay me sales tax because I'm a manufacturer. So when they pay the sales tax, it's where the cannabis is being sold. So the revenue generated from a grow facility is, I don't see where the advantage of any town having. Don't get me wrong, I believe in free enterprise and whatnot, and employing people, and there's certain taxation that happens on the flow of money in general. But really, where the taxation comes is the cannabis retail store. So you understand what I'm saying? Like when I buy $1,000 of cannabis from a grow facility, I don't pay them sales tax; they're exempt. I pay it, but I'm paying it in Holyoke, where they get a piece of it. So it's really important to understand that. So if your opponents say, "Hey, we're growing marijuana here, isn't that enough? Leave it alone." Okay.
And actually, we just at the select board meeting, I know there's a host community agreement with I believe it's Mr. Delatorre that's opening
Yeah,
up the
sure.
facility on Hudson Drive.
That's right.
It's going to be a grow facility. Not to shut you out, we haven't talked to you much
No,
over
guys,
here. Don.
forget this is great stuff.
So, what have you heard from anybody? Have you heard anything?
Well, to be honest, from we'll call it the planning perspective, it's been relatively quiet.
Yeah,
You know,
obviously with no. The ability to do it isn't there. Other than
That's
we can,
right.
We can put in a medical marijuana dispensary. We can put in a grow facility, but we can't put a retail establishment.
That's right. I think some of that is part of a learning process. We do get calls on a regular basis from we'll call them out of state or out of area interested investors, right, or investment groups.
Yep.
Looking at opportunities. Southwick is it's a town with opportunity. We have space to accommodate these things, but with our existing bylaws, sometimes it's a surprise to them when I do tell them that we are at I think medical sales are permitted, but frankly, it's production and processing, and
I
that's
think
it.
for the most part, in Massachusetts, I would assume. Again, I don't. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't most dispensaries now dual purpose?
Actually not, because medical, first thing, only 1 or 2% of all the consumers are medical, and you have to hold, like, if you want to do medical and recreational, it becomes like in Holyoke, out of all the dispensaries there's not one medical, and obviously that's a sign that there's a reason why they don't do it, because of the compliance and the money and the involvement.
Well, obviously, even more regulated.
Even more, and it's too much money, and you have to keep separate stuff in separate vaults, and it becomes, so that's why there's no medical dispensaries in Holyoke. That right now, I don't want to say a number, but probably is approaching 10 dispensaries. Not to say that somebody could not come in, open up a medical one, and wait for our bylaws to change, and then kind of swap over, and they would be the first ones. But that's a big investment and a big risk.
For a maybe.
To maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not doing
A
it.
thin margin for an extended period of time, right?
Correct.
If they wanted to move forward.
Correct.
Yeah.
And also, one of the advantages that Southwick has, that it borders Connecticut, and it borders Connecticut in an area that most of the first dispensaries in Connecticut are going to be in the mainstream off of 91, Hartford, big area. So whoever opens up in Southwick will really capture a great population of the Connecticut crowd, because just from where we're located and how far it is for those little towns on our side to move into the bigger stores.
Well,
So
I know when I was looking into this, because that was one of the things that came up, both from one of my fellow select board members. He said, "What about Connecticut?" And I said, "Well, the dilution factor from Connecticut, you're not going to have it, even if you do not. I think we can still get ahead of that power curve, because."
But now, if you wait one more cycle,
that's that's the thing.
call it quits.
I'm not trying to shove this down people's throat, and that's why when Doug asked me the other day, Mr. Moglen, you realize that by changing this one word, it's not going to allow it. And I said, absolutely, I understand that. I want to do this in small, and I want to work with everybody to make this work for everybody. The people that are against it, I respect everybody's point of view. I always will, always have. But yeah, it's Connecticut. I know 56 licenses to start. That includes the grow facilities. I know right now the closest to us, I think they just proposed one in Enfield. Actually, I do know they're turning it's going to be the former Outback Steakhouse.
Oh,
I
wow.
jokingly said to a friend of mine who is also a town councilor in Enfield, I said, "Are they going to have a drive-up window?" He said, "Well, I don't know."
Oh,
But
I know one in Windsor Locks. They're working on
Yep.
it in Windsor, but I mean, they're still behind the curve, and also because cannabis cannot flow between states, we still get quite a few consumers from Connecticut because they're just not where they need to be, and they don't have they don't just have enough, they don't have good quality, and but I agree. I mean, when cannabis came to the market in the beginning in Massachusetts, we would have made a killing as a town. A killing.
just about everybody.
Now, 3 years later, don't quote me on exactly. Again, I told you I'm not one of these big advocates. I don't go to meetings. I don't go to conferences in Boston. I don't have blogs. I'm not that guy.
Yeah, yep.
I'm sitting here because I live in the town, and I believe that we're just letting money just flow away out of our pockets. It's wasteful what I see. So I'm taking my time to do this. Like I said, it's I went to a meeting a few months ago just to get up and say, I just wrote a check. Like I sat there and looked at the report that I have to submit, and it was like over $2 million in taxes to the city of Holyoke, and this is just crazy.
That's just in 1 year.
Yeah, 1 year, and that's just me. There's 10 stores there. God knows. I mean, they're building a whole school, I think, without getting any federal funding. I mean, that's how much money.
That's astonishing.
It's crazy. So now this year, if we can get it and somebody can open in the next year, you're still going to capture quite a bit from the Connecticut and from Massachusetts. But if you wait another 2 or 3 years,
I know
it's going to be $100,000, $200,000 business.
I want to say Simsbury has a moratorium. I know East Granby does. I know there's been
Southfield will probably have one.
some. There's been a little bit of hubbub there. I think they're more interested in the grow facilities. But yeah, I did a lot of that research because I knew that was going to be one of the things that came up. Again, this is just an untapped revenue source. I want to make it clear to everybody. I am not in any way, shape, or form promoting cannabis use or anything like that. I understand people's concerns about children. Everybody knows what I do for my employment, and I even, like I said, took some heat for that. But that's how strongly I feel about it. It's there. It's a legal business. We might as well utilize it. Like one of the prime examples I gave is, what is it? I think our new roof is costing us, almost $1 million.
Is it only that?
I'm sure it'll be more than that when it's said and done.
Oh, boy.
But I'm sure the materials will go up, and, unfortunately, I don't know. I'm still new enough where I don't know the specifics about a lot of the contracts, and usually we vote to have our chair negotiate a lot of that stuff with our chief administrator, Carl Steinhardt. So still not familiar with a lot of that stuff, but the roof, another prime example I gave is if, we brought in $1 million, I know we had to bond for the North Pond. I know that was a big brouhaha.
Sure.
For $1 million. We wouldn't have had to bond that, and it doesn't mean we have to use it all that way. We could set it off, siphon some off to put towards the fire truck. I just want people to realize that I'm doing this for the money. I'm doing it for them. The money is there, like you said, it's flowing through the town.
And also, Jason, I think you guys, as the city council, could put
Select board.
Select board. But you are a councilman, no?
Select board member. They've
Select board
changed that
member. They've
term.
changed the
We're
title.
all
I apologize,
politically
Jason.
correct.
But my point is, you guys are going to regulate, and you're going to make sure that the regulations say 500 feet from a school. You can say it's 1,000 feet from a school. If people are concerned about churches, I mean, you could put any kind of stops and breaks in where you designate these areas. I mean, I don't really see a lot of the advantages of it, but I think if there's still concerns, I mean, alcohol versus cannabis.
Oh, don't get me going on.
All right, people speeding down the highway.
We talked about that the other day.
It's
Again,
like, I don't think I don't want to, I'm just saying I would love to sit against somebody that's an opponent and have a conversation one-on-one and really have that conversation, and I'm willing
every
to do
couple
it
of months.
anytime.
I do sit downs. I promised that during the campaign. I actually have one next week. I think it's next week. I got to double check the calendar. And I've tried to I did one in the evening. I've done one in the morning. The morning ones work better for me because I can leave right from work and go to the town hall. But not everybody's available that way. And that's what I'm there for at those roundtables. I'm like, what do you folks want? Tell me what's important to you. And that would be a perfect opportunity to do that, as well as, I might even have you come in again so you can tell people what you just told me, because not everybody's on the YouTube, and the old folks are like that internet and stuff like that. Prime example is what was interesting with the survey we did. If you look at the numbers, and you heard it, if you looked at the online, it was almost exactly the opposite. Of course, you've got
of the paper.
Yes, the paper about they were more, but the percentages were almost identical. So it's getting the information out there. I know the mentality. My mom, God bless her, she's still with us. She just actually had her hip replaced yesterday or the day before. Now they used to joke and call her Milk Dud when she was growing up because she didn't drink, she didn't do anything, and then she married my father, who was a Vietnam vet, 60s.
Opposite attract?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking of the term,
So, we kept telling her, try the CBDs. Well, the CBDs didn't quite work, and I know I'm not sure of the difference. I mean, I know there's a difference. You got the tetrahydra how do you pronounce it?
You probably know more than me, but I
Tetrahydrocannabinol.
believe that the CBD and the THC, especially when it comes to the ointments, when it comes to relaxation, when it comes to anxiety. I mean, there is so many. Again, I'm not a medical doctor or claim to have a medical facility, but there is so much good out there. And like I said, by having one in our town or not, it's not like you're doing anything but just where do our residents go to buy their cannabis. It's not like you're stopping it. You're just saying, you know what, I'm going to give Westfield the money, or I'm going to give some town in Connecticut the money. It makes 0 sense besides just, because somehow inside they feel raw about it. And my opinion is, we're in America. You don't like it,
you don't have to do it.
Don't purchase it.
Correct.
Don't support it. But why have to drive 25 minutes to Westfield, the closest one, to buy it, and then drive it all the way back? It's just an inconvenience, and especially with delivery, if it's allowed, and it may be allowed. Now you've
pretty
achieved
sure it is.
nothing.
I meant to look that up before I
nothing
came here.
besides just hurting our town budget. Period.
Yeah. So that's where I am with that. That's that aspect of it on the retail side. Now, John, tell us about the marijuana overlay district. How does that
Where is that? I didn't even know we had one.
Yeah.
I need to come and visit you.
I will say, John has been a wealth of knowledge since I got on, and I greatly appreciate it.
Let's see if I can keep that trajectory at least reasonably consistent, because the one thing I don't have in front of me is my trusty laptop and handbooks and so on and so forth. Generally speaking, and this may not be precise for the exact limits of the district, but and we were talking about it earlier, this has been an incremental process both for the town of Southwick and statewide, right? So I suppose the first consideration was looking at that medical aspect of it, right? And as James pointed out, as that has morphed to today, it's just a very small percentage of the market. If I scratch the back of my mind, I think at one point in time there was a party looking at a separate property on Hudson Drive that when I was working as a land use consultant with Southwick, that was pushed forward and never went any further than we'll call it site permit.
Other than the one that's kind of
different from that site. Okay. And again, that was someone's idea. It never came to fruition. I think probably, I suppose as many things are, it's driven by those market conditions, right? So if that was the initial push for, we'll call it allowable use, and then looking at the production and processing that was built into it, that's all restricted. Or I shouldn't say that's all. The processing and production restricted to our industrial restricted zoned areas. So those areas that in many cases have at least some separation.
Yeah, they're
are
separated.
more residentially or densely.
That's pretty much what's interesting, because Westfield started the same way. The two dispensaries that are now open, one is tucked in the back by the airport.
Yep.
The other one is in the airport, the industrial road area, which is behind the old Friendlies, which I actually lived right around the corner from till I moved to Southwick. And like I said, in my professional capacity, you don't see. You look, and the thing is we talked about this with coming through the state. Look at every single one of those plates. I would say 75% of them are Connecticut and New York, because they can jump. It's going to change a little bit.
It will.
But like I said, I know some of these even more conservative towns, if there is such a thing as Southwick. I mean, we're like the reddest of red. There was a story in the paper, and I understand the conservative, mindset, but the world is changing. We don't want to be left behind. And again, this isn't about being like everybody else. This is, folks, I'm going to say it over and over again. This is for you. I want to keep your rates low. I want to be able to not raise our taxes. Unfortunately, the way the market and society works, valuations on average go up even before this crazy market, between 6 and 7% on most of your real estate. So inflation's going to continue, but the way we can do that, we don't have a lot of that commercial business. One of the things that came up during my campaign, and I was all for it initially, it's like, we don't have a split rate like Westfield. It's different. Let's do it this way. So I did some real in-depth digging, and it took a lot of work to understand the way the tax rates work. I think most of our revenue comes from residential, and it was about, it was crazy numbers. It was like the residential property and non-commercial was like 4 billion. I'd have to look it up again. I'm not gonna quote numbers, but it was skewed probably 80% to 20% the way the commercial market works. So everybody wanted that, and so you can't really do that in Southwick because we don't have the commercial tax base. And I know that's one of the things I've talked to you about is, and I know with the master plan, we're doing a lot of work on what we want and where we want it. We've got, I call it the retail corridor, that comes right through town where they've done the work. We've got the suicide lanes that nobody knows how to use. And that's the area I see envisioning. And right off that area is, I'm going to say it because I wasn't involved in it, the evil Carvana plot.
Sure.
And the new plan for that is, we're going to develop it. And I understand a lot of my residents, and I said I'm not going to always agree with everything you say. And a lot of people don't want that development, as we know. That was one of the primary things on the master plan. It's like, let's keep Southwick the way it is.
Sure. I mean, I guess looking at a couple different aspects there. From the master plan perspective, a strong resonating voice has been heard about trying to preserve the fabric that Southwick has. Enhancing the opportunity for the remaining agriculture and the features that everybody loves and knows along their roads to be able to be part of that fabric, right?
Yep.
But although I work in Southwick, I do commute to Southwick, right? So, and similar to a lot of residents who commute out of Southwick.
Well, that's another
How
thing.
do you maintain that?
And most of our income for our residents comes from outside of Southwick. We don't have that job base, and this is another thing that can bring it. I know, like I said, the development is a huge sore point with a lot of people.
But just on that point, just like my little cannabis store, I mean, how many people do you think a little cannabis store open 7 days a week from 8 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night? How many people do you think are on my general payroll in one cannabis store? Just throw a number, because you're going to be wrong.
I was going with
it's 25.
25.
Wow.
So how many square feet is your store?
2,000. 25. Well, because you have to have invoices. So just imagine you have 3 stores. That's
2,000. Okay, that's about 2/3 of my downstairs.
Okay.
So I got it.
And it's not low-paying jobs. I mean, it's not 14, 15. These are $20 plus jobs, plus tips, plus, there's general managers in the 100,000, 70,000. I mean, 60,000 jobs. It's
How about your grow facilities? How many do you?
Well, it depends.
Is that different?
Well, the grow facility is only 8,000 square foot, 5,000 under canopy, but it can range between 3 and 4, depending if we're trimming and what we're doing, and up to 14 or 12. Yep. But, and just to remind you, every person employed in a store has to have a background check, has to have a query check. Yep. It's a very clean business. Everybody has to be queried. We have security when you walk in the door just to make sure you look 21. We card you going into the facility. We card you at the desk. So this, buying a box of cigarettes, you get checked maybe once. Here it's mandatory to be checked twice.
You don't see them doing age things at the cannabis stores, do you?
It's pretty great. The security, the cameras, we have to patrol outside the facilities, and that's why I think if the average person understood what the state already did in the advocacy to make sure it was safe in the neighborhoods, even smell. I mean, if there's any smell,
I will say that's the one thing I can't stand.
But there are solutions. There's that's part of the regulations, like with these grow facilities. That's part of they have to. There's ways to do it that there's no smell.
I know, but not to pick a certain place, but Hecka's a pretty big place. They do grow and retail there, and that's actually my patrol sector.
There's ways to mitigate it. It depends.
And I don't smell a thing, because I go back there and check. That's
There's filters.
You don't really smell anything.
Yeah, no.
So I mean, I've smelled more of it walking past certain people in Walmart, in the grocery store, because it just sticks. And that's the thing. It's like, oh, do you think I don't know you just smoked that? But so that's a big thing with the cannabis. Again, I want people to understand, because I did see a couple posts. Well, if it's up to our new select board member, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. I'm not about it's cannabis. It's people. It's for you. I want to keep your taxes down. I want to be able to purchase those things. Southwick is an interesting town. I don't know if a lot of people know, our minimum manning for our police department is 2 guys at night. I will tell you, as a officer, there's been numerous times where if you have a domestic and an accident, you don't have enough guys. We've had to help over here and help block off roads, and in some cases, we have a mutual aid agreement. So that's something like, prime example, I looked at the budget numbers yesterday before I came. I want to say the salary for a firefighter would be, they're like 30, I think a starting firefighter EMS, about $30 an hour. So I figured out it comes to about $80,000. And Southwick is unique in that we only pay half of the health benefits. So it's a little bit different. So knowing what I know based on the numbers, you're looking at about, for a new firefighter, right around 100,000. That we'd be.
Yeah, all in.
And same thing for an officer. And I'm a very big proponent of you need more than 3. We have a minimum manning, and it's, you get a crazy section of stuff going on, or like the significant accidents we've had in town, unfortunate tragedies, and that's, you got 2 guys tied up, you're calling people in, and where's that money coming from? I'll tell you what, people don't realize that overtime budget, it shows on a sheet, but it's always bigger. The overtime, and it's something that has to be paid. We have to, it just has to be paid from somewhere. And like I said, the fire trucks, the DPW, I know the dump truck they're looking for, $310,000. That's right now. For a dump truck with a plow, stainless steel bed. I'm not sure if it includes a sander or we're going to use one of our old ones. A pickup truck, $75,000.
Sure.
This is why I'm doing it. It's about the money and bringing it into town rather than letting it drive through.
Right. If I can also interject, I mean,
most certainly can.
I own Holyoke Cannabis, and yes, we have, taxes that are collected from the residents and passed on to the state, down to the cities, to the towns, and et cetera. But there's also a lot of really goodwill in a cannabis store because we understand, being part of the community. And I mean, I know it sounds like, oh boy, here he goes, but we sponsor organizations that take care of veterans. We take care, we have the Holyoke race that we're going to sponsor, and I think also what you're not seeing is if there's a few cannabis stores in town or one cannabis store, and I'm sure they would support organizations like our food bank. I know that's something I'm passionate about, and actually last time I went to the meeting, the food bank people were sitting there, and I'm going to stop by and do what I need to do. But there's a lot more that goes on than it's having a good neighbor, instead of looked at as this bad druggie, oh my God, it really should be looked at like, oh my God,
change that image, and
it's an image. I know that I personally would support the food bank or any other organization that felt right in town to do it. And, for a cannabis store that's, let's say we're doing like Holyoke Cannabis in general, and it's public record, we did over $10 million in sales. Think about what I just said just for a second. $10 million in sales in one little cannabis store. So do you think for me to donate $5,000 or $10,000 to a food bank, it wouldn't be my pleasure?
What is it? The state's up to, well, this is the
No,
last
so
time
it's
I read,
20%. That's where that $2 million came.
$14 billion has come in 2020, yeah.
So we have 17% between sales tax and then impact fee, that's 3%. It's 20%. So that's where that $2 million came from.
Yeah.
That $2 million that we actually collected or wrote out to the city or actually, went to the state, how it gets levied down, I'm not going to get into that.
Yep.
But we also do a lot of community activities that just are not seen because that's what we do. So having a good neighbor in town really has to be viewed as a good neighbor. So now you're going to tell the food bank, James just sat there and said he's going to donate $10,000 and somebody's going to say, oh, we're not going to bring it in just because? We're not going to have an extra police department.
Really
We're not going to have. It's really for me. That's why I'm sitting here. I don't have any agenda. I don't have a host agreement sitting on my desk waiting to run in. And anybody that knows me would know that.
And you've said a couple times when you came to one of my campaign events, you're not looking to open up a store. It's not about that. It's about supporting, bringing the tax money into town. Yeah.
This is my third reaching out to you the first time, going to the city meeting, coming out here to the interview. It's purely because, again, I live in the town of Southwick, and it hurts me and shameful that we're just not able to just calm down enough to say, you know what, the town's going to regulate it, the state has regulated. I was telling you earlier on, they actually have regulations that a lot of towns don't know. They have recommendations what to do in the host agreements, how to do the host agreements. You don't have to spend any time. And I think even if I could help you guys on the board, setting up the rules so you're not spending a lot of our resources in planning boards and all kinds of stuff that's just not necessary. The normal process.
Well, if you go to a planning board meeting, you're going to be there a while anyway.
Well, but I'm just saying, in Holyoke, I believe, and look, Northampton is a perfect example. Northampton, if I want to open up a cannabis store, I get a host agreement, I open it up. I mean, same thing. I still have to go through the state. I still have to make sure all the security plans are in place. I still have to make sure that there's all the regulations in the 21. But ultimately, I have to, go through and pull a permit. And part of pulling a permit automatically triggers a review by the planning board and traffic and et cetera, and et cetera. It's all in place. So one thing that's important that if we decide to do that is to allow it is to make sure that we don't spend more of our resources than necessary at this point. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? That we don't make something that's so crazy and difficult and so many checks and they're already there is what I'm trying to say on a municipality level and on a state level.
So one of the things that also has come up in some of the articles when they, it's interesting. Never thought in my life I'd be a front page story of the news. Like I said the last time I was here, if you told me 3 years ago I was going to be here, I told you you're nuts. But one of the things that's come up is the closing of the stores. Maybe I mean, Northampton, I know, my opinion, 13 in one town, I think you got enough. You got any insight as to why those stores are closing?
Well, absolutely. So first thing is that, when cannabis came into Massachusetts, it's basically open and they will come.
Yep.
And people just opened and people got excited and even
I remember what's the one in the original, is it the one
inside Northampton.
In Northampton.
Oh my God.
We actually got married at me and my wife at Union Station. And people are like, what's that line for? I mean, it was the middle of the night pouring on our wedding. And there's this line from the dispensary down Pleasant Street to about the Union Station. I'm like, oh, they're like, oh, really? So, some of the people at our wedding probably took advantage of that.
Sure.
So I think what happened is, the market, when like Holyoke Cannabis, we used to have people come from New Jersey, from New York, from Vermont. Like we used to have, we have signs on 91, both from both directions.
Yep.
So to capture that traffic, the next time probably I'm going to take the signs down because that traffic's not there anymore.
Yeah.
But Jason, my question is, everybody talks about closing. Let me ask you, what harm did that create besides just American business?
There's now a piece of property that has taxable property on it. That's another thing that comes. That's not even counting
the property taxes. There's so much money that flows through these things from every direction. We'd sit here for hours talking about it.
Yeah.
Well, you employ 25 people. They don't pay federal taxes. They don't pay state taxes.
Well,
the money there's so much more than just that 17% or 18% or 20% that happens in the background.
Yeah. So.
People shop in Southwick that live in Southwick. You're putting your money local. You take it. You don't have not to have that option. For me, again, I talk about American business and just how many stores we limited to or not limited to. It will all balance out. There is no harm. What happened in Northampton? There was absolutely no harm. So what happened? Some people went into, how many people open up restaurants? Let's have that argument. You open up a restaurant. There's 15
restaurants.
Well,
the only thing I made the argument about is the other day was package stores. They open and they never close. But and like you said, I'm going to go back to that from my professional capacity. I would rather deal with someone who's had a little smoke or puff or taken a little candy all day long than deal with people that are usually the drinkers. To each their own, but I can tell you in my career, 90% of the people that I've dealt with where I've had to get any sort of force to apprehend or control them, they're drunk.
No, 100%. I mean, I just want to let you know that the biggest opponents to cannabis
Right, the package store?
are the package stores. I have been in Chamber of Commerce where they've invited me over, and literally the person that owns the packing store like quit the organization because people, instead of getting a 12-pack or a 6-pack, now they'll have a joint in one. Listen, people can do what they want, and also same thing. You're not allowed to consume marijuana on the street. You're not allowed to be high outside.
That's not gonna change.
I mean, let's put this where it is.
I'm not looking to change that at all.
You can't be on Southwick on the pond smoking up and being impaired. I mean, let's really slow down for a second. So there's a lot of rules and school zones and et cetera. So it's not acceptable and it's not okay. And there's laws.
Yep.
But the point here is, like you said. I mean, when I'm driving behind somebody and they're driving 5 miles an hour, I say to myself, "Up, he's high."
Or they're on their cell phone.
But when people get drunk, they get belligerent. There's domestic violence. I mean, I can't think of. And again, I'm not in law enforcement, but when people get stoned, the last thing they want to do is fight with their wife.
No,
I'm serious. I mean, I'm willing to argue this in front of any medical community.
That I made in September when I first started talking about it at the select board meeting. One of the things I mentioned is, okay, I just had a brain fart.
Well, it's not about picking on the alcohol industry. I'm just saying that the people, everybody has a place, and as Americans, we're all entitled to do what we need to do at home in peace, not harm anybody.
At least we're not Oregon.
Exactly. So again, I do believe in having rules and regulations, and I believe in government. I believe in you. I believe in your capacity, what you're doing. That you're not going to just let it just be the wild, wild west here.
Oh, absolutely.
Nobody I know every person on the committee. And at one point we voted for you guys, and it's something that we need the money right now. Bottom line.
Southwick being a smaller town without that base, and unfortunately, a lot of the farms are being put into was 61A, the restricted, where the only exactly what's the difference between 61A and 61B? I always wanted to know.
So one of them is frankly putting your land into a taxable situation for recreational purposes. Okay. And the other one is, I think, agricultural or forestry.
So A is I know that's the agricultural forestry. Okay, since you're here, I might as well ask you. Right?
Oh, heck.
Yeah, so I mean, we've hit that on we're almost to the end of.
I never asked how long this goes on. I guess I was sitting here. I was going, is this a half an hour, an hour? What are we doing?
Yes, you have
here?
another show at 9:00. A new show coming up at 9. So.
All right, so we got a few more. minutes.
We got a few more minutes, but like I said, I wanted to bring up the fact that Mr. Grillo, we've talked to him about him. He bought the launch in the marina. One of the things that people might like to hear about is we kind of moved the beavers. That's the plan, and I believe they've been moved. And Mr. Grillo realizes how really unsafe that North Pond. You don't have a line of sight.
No, it's terrible.
So his plan, I want people to know this because a lot of people, as soon as they hear somebody bought this or bought that, what are they going to do this? What are they going to do that? Well, I'm going to tell you because he's told me. He's and he told all of us at that meeting that he's planning on adjusting the dock, moving it over, now that he can utilize that area that the beavers had taken away, and opening it up so the boating traffic is going to be significantly safer. That's the plan.
So you can kind of look straight down versus kind of sitting on the side. You kind of poke your nose in, and then you see a boat coming, and you're trying to like what I do the whole summer?
Yeah, well,
yes.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So there's that, and like I said, I brought up the other stuff that he's planning on doing. To me, I want to make sure everybody knows about the stuff that's happening.
Great.
John, do we have any big projects on the future down the road?
Not on the horizon.
I mean, we know what's going to happen with that other place. They've
686 College Highway.
That place.
So sure, yep. An industrial subdivision is what they are.
Yeah, that's what they. We voted to. I don't think we technically approved it. I think we supported it. I don't remember the actual specifics of the vote, but they might. It's funny. I've got a stack of. My wife says I've got folders everywhere now. It's like I don't even know where to put them all. And it's
they multiply in the darkness.
Oh, it's interesting. My wife, went out and bought some bins because I don't have anywhere else. She's like, well, I've got office space above. Her office is above the consignment store behind McDonald's. So she expanded her office and just said, oh, can I have one of your rooms? So she's mentioned that. But I'm here. I want people to know I'm here for them. This is about them.
100%.
The other thing that I wanted to quick touch on that I put on the having the town warrant article is the aggregation. I don't know if anybody's heard me, the electrical aggregation. There's a plan in place that the state does it now. I know Mr. Fox does it. Any individual can do it now, and you can actually go to some of these, I guess you'd call them purchasing companies, and they have a large pool. So what they do is they actually can negotiate rates. I'm pushing hard on that. That's another thing that I want everybody out there to know. It's about saving you money. It's not going to do anything for me. It's not going to do anything for these businesses. They know what they're doing. There's no significant ulterior motive behind it. Any way I can find a way to save money or get money, I really want to do that and want people to know, I'm going to listen to your differences and your protests to certain things, but just I want folks to know I got into this because I wanted to make a difference, and hopefully we can do that. So, trying to think, anything else we really wanted to touch on here? Pete, yeah, you heard anything?
No, actually, Southwick's been quiet on my radar. I haven't heard squat about. There's stuff going on here in Westfield, but I haven't heard a lot about Southwick.
Yeah, well,
because usually Kenny will stop by and mention something that's going on. So,
for those of you who don't know, Ken Stomsky is our AV technology
Channel
guy.
15. He's my counterpart in Channel 15.
Well, any updates on the restaurants on the water? Krabby Joe's old location, anything like that? I mean, I'm excited about some restaurants on the water.
We do have the new Prime restaurant. I don't think they've done their hard grand opening yet. I hope not, because I would have liked to be there.
Yeah, I think they already did their invite. I think they're open now. By the way, I mean, I do live across from it.
A lot of places it happens here in Westfield that the grand ribbon cutting opening is 6 months after it's open. But you want that little bit of press for the folks.
And what about the other restaurant in the south side?
Krabby Joe's, John.
Listen,
I know we only have like a minute, then we have to get up.
I know that.
There's a lot
work
of,
continues.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a big project.
I know you could see that they redid the deck. I've watched some of the planning board meetings. I know there was a lot of talk over a stone wall. Me and my wife were sitting there going, my wife was actually like, how can they not understand? I mean, she's like, I can understand. Why is talking about a stone wall taking 25 minutes?
It's all about making sure being responsible to the abutting property.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. All right, well, good. Well,
so, there's that. Again, there's honestly, there's a couple other things that I'm looking at that I'd like to try and promote in town. But I'll leave those for another day. But I'm here for the residents. That's why I brought Mr. Jaron in. I want everybody to know everything as much as they can.
Absolutely.
So they can make an informed choice when we go to town meeting and not sit there and have this image that we remember the long-haired guys, and not that there's anything wrong with wearing.
No, but I know what you mean.
You're
Like
Metallica
the
jacket.
biker,
Yeah,
the chain
biker.
hanging out. I mean, that's an image that people have that they think they're going to come into town. And trust me, it was the cost of marijuana. That's not who shows up to my store.
And like you said, there's the safety aspect with the fentanyl, the carafentanyl. I've never understood why some of these people mix, very deadly drugs with stuff that's supposed
crazy.
You're kind of offing your own customer, but I'm not here to promote that. That's for sure.
For sure.
But that's it. We're pretty much to the end. I want to thank you guys both for coming.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Jason.
And John, I'm sure I'm going to drag you in here every once in a while
I look
when
forward
there's
to the next
something new
opportunity.
going on. And again, thank you for all your help that you've given me and advice and explanations. We've had a lot of interesting explanations. I learned about common driveways, and we just voted on one of those not too long ago, or the planning board did.
Yep.
And it's interesting. It's been very interesting, this whole experience. I'm enjoying it. Hopefully, the people that I'm representing are some of the folks that had a different image of me when it started. I hope it's changed. Those of you that don't, well, hopefully I can change your opinion down the road, but to each their own. I'm not here to make myself sound better than anybody else. I just, I'm here for them. So
Thank you.
Pete, I guess we're pretty close to wrapping it up. That way we can get out of here and you can move on to your next show.
Yep, absolutely. We got a tape show coming up. It's On the Mark with Mark Auerbach. So
awesome. So thank you, Peter, for doing our Around Southwick. Everybody knows, so they know. We do it each month. It rotates through the select board, and then I know Mr. Didi has the Joe Didi show. Is that once a month too?
Yeah, that's first Friday, once a month at 9 o'clock.
And these all come out.
They're all on YouTube.
Day, right?
Right. How do we view them? So we go to YouTube and we put in
WSKB Community Radio. Also, the Morning Block has got its own YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
We'll show you.
All right.
So again,
I'll try to
Peter,
put a plug
thank
to
you.
the crowd,
James,
so.
thank you. And John, thank you. And hopefully, my residents of Southwick that I'm representing, I hope you understand why I'm really doing this. This is something I really want to do for the town and for us to take some of that pressure off of everybody. You know, it's there. We might as well utilize it. So, and that's my podium for the day.
Thank you.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent family